Okay. Call this meeting to order, the joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, the Board Select Board, excuse me. To start, Brian's gonna give us a quick overview. He's attended all of the various finance meetings between town, the school, and the county. So it'd be interesting to give everyone a perspective on what he's seen.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for letting me have this little say, but I wanted to make a brief introductory statement because I think out of everybody in this room, I'm probably the only one that goes to all of the finance committee meetings for the school, for the county, for here. Because I really do want to have a good grasp of what we're doing and what our charge is here and what we have to talk about today. In short, what we're noticing is very drastic increases from both the school district and the county. Both of those are somewhat uncontrollable to what we have decisions to make. A lot of times we've been making decisions about our budget in accordance with what the school proposes and what the county proposes to try to keep the taxpayers' taxes down. What we are experiencing and what I think we can expect moving forward over the next 5 to 10 years is massive budget increases from both of those areas. Part of this is because of aging infrastructure. The county has started putting money away for capital improvements. They just paid off their bond that usually was $600,000 a year. This year they paid that off. That was for the jail. And in the budget cycle this year, they decided to take that $600,000 and roll it back into the budget. And there's still a 12% increase, given that with expenditure increases, they're probably closer to 15 or 16%. And that's just a proposed at this point. We're talking about it and we're going from there. Although the way that budgeting works, unfortunately, I'm not sure the budget advisory committee has a lot of authority or influence over that budget, other than we can make recommendations. And it's up to the 3 commissioners of the county to decide what to do. And out of the entire population of the county, that budget is decided by 3 people. So that's something to take note of that we have very little control over. However, we're gonna see drastic increases from that side over the next 5 to 10 years. The school budget is a similar story. Recently, I went back 8 years or 10 years and looked at what the budgets were starting in 2017 and all the way to 2027 proposed this year. What we've noticed over that time is from, I think, 2019 to 2026, there's been a 63% increase in their budget. Now, with that trend being a very definitive trend because they've had pretty big increases, I've also tracked what it would look like over the next 10 years because I want to help people prepare for what's upcoming if things don't change. And that's part of the conversation. But the reality is in simplistic terms, what I've found out is that if you take the current 5th graders in our school system right now, when they graduate high school in 2032 or 33, the school budget is going to be over $100 million. That it is a lot. It's a very big cause. Now, that number does not include something that they've recently proposed with a facilities master plan. That facilities master plan has been approved by the school board and will be starting to take action next year's budget. That facility master plan has a grand total of $90 to $110 million, depending on what they choose. The stark realization we all have to make in this room is none of that funding is shared cost from the state, from the county, from federal government. That's an entire 100% tax burden for the taxpayers of our town. So when I put all of these things together and I look at, long-term budgeting for what we look at in this town, we're looking at some big increases that we can't control to a point where it might start getting unreasonable. And I think publicly, I'd like to say, I think it's time that we all start using our voices in those areas, the school department and the county, because here we sit as a town. And I feel, this is my own personal opinion, but I do feel our town is very fiscally responsible. And oftentimes we act like Big Brother almost, where we cut certain things out or find ways to push it off to next year or down the road to keep taxes lower for the town or for the town of Topsham. The problem with that is we've been doing that for a long time, and that's not gonna be able to continue very long. It's inevitable that at some point our town is growing rapidly and we're getting a lot of other things coming in. Services are gonna need to increase. We're gonna need more fire department staff, fire trucks, ambulances. We're gonna need a lot of different things coming up, and things that we've been putting off are gonna have to come forward too. So when we're having our conversations today, I just wanna put all of this information in the back of your mind, not because I wanna play Big Brother anymore. Partly because I feel like Topsham needs to do what Topsham needs to do. And we need to be responsible with what the taxes of our town are. But we also, something in me just feels like we need to also be resilient and maybe put in things in the budget that we're trying to cut out. And I say that very lightly because I'm a very conservative and fiscally responsible person. But at the same time, we have to do the things necessary for this town so that the people of the town have a safe place to live, whether they're biking or walking on the roads, or whether it's staffing our police department or our fire department or plowing the roads and maintaining the roads. These are all things that are coming up. And we're on a great schedule for paving our roads right now, but we are a little bit behind and we keep pushing it off. So some of the things that we can consider are, what do we want to do that's important for this town? And I think the course of action, if we don't do it this year in tonight's meeting and we start talking about it, this needs to be a conversation that we start having now for the next budget cycle. Because one of the options for us is to start finding voices and finding people that have voices that are concerned with the budget and attending the school district meeting, attending the county meetings, or attending these things to voice their concerns if they're concerned. The other part of me, and then let's flip to the other side of the script here, the other part of me feels like if the school budget is passing all of this money and it's getting voted through, and the county is doing the same and it's getting voted through, one could argue that people do want those expenditures. Even though I don't, maybe people do. And if people are voting those budgets through and their large increases, do we do the same? I'm not suggesting that, but I'm looking at both sides of the equation here, trying to keep as open of a mind as possible. And I think these are all worthy points of conversation for this evening and forward through our budget seasons upcoming. But this conversation is more of a, I don't necessarily want to call it a warning, but a heads up. This is where we have some work to do in the coming years. And I think it's going to be a challenge, and tough decisions are going to need to be made on our part and on the school's part and on the county's part. But we need to help the schools realize that they need to make some tough decisions along with the county as well, while still serving all the needs, because they're doing the same thing we are. They're just asking for more money and getting it approved. So this is where I landed. This was not an intention of trying to make a wide open conversation or spending a lot of time on it. But I do think it's worthy of note, considering the people in this room are the decision makers for what we do in the future of Topsham. And it's really important that we do the right thing for the people of this town, given the stuff that we can control, and have the conversation accordingly. And that kind of leads into Mark, I suppose, about with what their proposals are.
So to update everyone watching at home, or if anyone is, or people watching on recording, this afternoon I shared a memo with the select board and the finance committee regarding some new facts that are hot off the presses from yesterday. And then, but first I'll start with an additional request. I'd like to call Deputy Chief St. Pierre up to explain that we're gonna ask for the fire department to be an additional $5,250 more due to the fact we need to buy a box to secure narcotics.
Hi there. So what's happening is the federal DEA is enacting a Protecting Patient Access to Emergency Medications Act. They originally gave us a deadline of enacting this on March 9th, which gave every Maine EMS service 30 days to somehow comply to a complete controlled substance program. Needless to say, it was not rolled out appropriately. They didn't have the availability for us to get our DEA licensing within 30 days. Not even beginning to go online to do it yet. However, it's coming. right now the rule is pending. Maine EMS is advocating for us with the federal level to try to get an equal, share for the state side to get them all to agree on our federal way that we're gonna use controlled substances. So as of right now, Midcoast Hospital controls all of our controlled substances. That's our fentanyl, Versed, and ketamine. So they own all of those narcotic medications. We carry them in a locked vault in the ambulances, use on medical calls, and then they replace our medications use. Once this act goes forth, we will be in charge of storing our own controlled substance medications and following all the DEA regulations that go with that. Controlled substance laws, we need to have med vaults or storage systems that can equally track who enters and who exits vault for medication. They need to be witnessed the whole 9 yards. So currently, the town already uses the Knox vault system for all of our town-wide Knox keys, as well as the vaults for our narcotic drugs in our ambulances. So we're asking the select board and finance committee to allow us to purchase a station vault, which would be bolted into our EMS supply room, and that will hold all of our narcotic medications. It's a secure vault that tracks anybody that enters the vault, so we can keep our controlled substances logged appropriately. Once this gets enacted, the hospital is also in a position where they can no longer be our salesperson. So we have to purchase all of our medications retail in bulk, which means we may have large amounts of narcotics that we have to have stored. Our hopes in Midcoast Hospital's hope is that they're gonna be able to get permission for us to buy wholesale through them and buy as needed, so we don't have to keep a lot of product stored. But we don't know that for right now. This got kind of thrown out there so quickly that it threw the hospitals for a little bit of a loop as well, because they're trying to kind of weed their way through the DEA process. So I did the numbers as a worst case scenario that we have to buy all of our medications retail, which leads to large lead times and getting them delivered, and then having to storage large amounts that will then expire and have to be replaced. So what I'm asking for today is to increase our capital line budget to $3,711. That'll cover the $3,211 Knox vault system that will tie into the system that we already currently use through the fire department. And we got a kind of a rough estimated cost from our electric company that'll cost about $500 to get that wired in. Running the numbers for how many medications or narcotic medications that we use within the last 2 years and averaging them out. Obviously, that's not a set number of meds. You can't, control when people will have seizures or need pain medications. A rough estimate is that we'll spend about $1,100 on controlled substance medications, which is an additional cost to what we normally spend for our medication purchases. So we're coming forth today to ask permission to set that to our budget so that we can be DEA compliant, because it will be rolled out as soon as the DEA and the state can kind of mash it out with each other, but it's coming.
And Kathy actually added to the operating budget rather than the capital budget,
Operating budget.
but it's 5250 she added.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, we really don't have a choice.
No,
We have to comply with that, so it's not like a,
we don't have a choice. If we want to do it right, this is the right way to do it. And it's going to be the safest way for our own accountability to make sure that they are secured appropriately.
Do we get reimbursed from the patients if they use the medication in,
No, right now, we charge on the ALS 1, 2, or BLS level call. So if we do use medications like these, the patient is charged as an ALS level 1 call.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we would make up for it that way. So we're already charging that way.
it's not the same though, do you get the same what you pay for those medications back or less?
Probably, well, it's hard to say because the fee's covering staffing,
That's everything.
vehicle, the
Yeah.
whole 9 yards. So
Hard to
really,
break it apart. Got it.
yeah, it's kind of one of those.
Which, in regard to, I'm sorry, let's just say injuries.
What?
With respect to Midcoast Hospital's role, you mentioned they would be, trying to have the function of being able to buy the drug and sell it to us at wholesale.
Yes.
What are they waiting for approval of that?
So, because of DEA rules, they would end up having to, if this is enacted as of March 9th, and now it's been put on hold, they technically really can't be selling us narcotic medications because we don't have a DEA license. We don't have a way of submitting the 222 forms. They can't really sell it to us. Because this has become so afloat because it wasn't launched appropriately, they're being allowed to continue doing everything the way that they have been in the past. Our pharmacist with Midcoast Hospital is also on the Maine MDPB board, which is the Maine EMS board, and all of our licensing rules and regulations. And I did check with her in December as well, because we had heard little rumors that this might come to fruition in maybe the next year or so. And even in December, when I was trying to plan out our year for our fiscal budgeting, I asked her, do you think this is gonna happen anytime soon? And she said, I don't foresee it happening for at least another year. So basically, all of Maine EMS and everybody got pretty surprised. This.
So who sets the rating signatures we charge for like an ALS call, or is that something we can increase?
We can look at the
How does
price
that-
increase,
how does
that's
that
actually, that's on my budget list for, not budget, but that's on my list once our new fire chief. Comes on board, that's one of my check items that I wanna re-meet with our billing companies to make sure that we're getting the right rates and billing appropriately for. Our level to be calls,
It was a set rate. Say ALS one, ALS two,
yeah.
or it has, it goes up a little bit at a time, but. I think you'll find this will change, it might have a provision that we can charge medications again, but that's been there for a while,
I
but
just want to know how often we reevaluate that, and see if we need to increase that.
we used to do it every
That
2
fee
years.
as our cost goes up.
We used to do it all the
I believe we
time.
do it every 2 years and it's within our billing company's own benefit that they keep an eye on those type of things too, because the more money we bring in, the more money they make, so it's kind of they try to keep an eye on that as well and let us know.
No chance in the future. The drug box we carry with the IV stuff and supplies. That goes onto our pocketbook too.
Yes, so the pharmacist did warn us that once the hospitals realize that the fire departments and the EMS services are able to manage their own DEA regulated controlled substance drugs, that likely down the line we'll have to manage our own medications as well. Currently, for medications that we hold in the trucks, we purchase all of our medications, but we have an agreement with the hospital that as it goes to our storage date, they'll do trades with us. And then in the future, once they decide that this is something that can be managed on our own, most likely I'll be coming back and having to readjust the budget. Hopefully in a while, to cover all those medications, because they will not be a 1-for-1 swap anymore, they'll be straight out of pocket. Which is a bummer, but both time. Not unexpected, we've just been very lucky that we've been able to go this long.
That's so, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's the one item in the memo. Next item is bad news that we can't do anything about. And that's that last week, the state put out the revenue projections, revenue sharing projections, and we're gonna get about 92,000 less than we got last year. So fortunately, in the words of Bill Belichick, it is what it is on that one. Then the next two things that maybe something can be done about is, as you may recall, when I first presented the budget to you, I said our goal was to try to keep the net expenses, so the net tax assessment, down to about 4%, and to accomplish that, because we knew we're gonna have less surplus than use this year. The budget, we actually held to an increase of approximately 3% for current year's expenditures, and also taking out whatever revenue is predicted. And I said that if the school and the county played ball and also tried to shoot for 4%, then we should be able to have a 4% net assessment, approximately. As of yesterday, we found out that the proposed budgets for the school and the county, the school is proposed that Topsham share go up 10% from what it was last year. And the county at the moment is proposing that Topsham share go up 12.39% from what it was last year. So when all that's taken into account, the reduced revenue sharing, the increased county and school, it would result in us having to raise 9.25% more in taxes than we raised last year. So that's significantly more than the 4% we were shooting for. Those still could be impacted potentially. The county budget is set by, as Vice Chair Holmes was saying, by the county commissioners. They're still going through their process. Hopefully, they might respond if they heard from people and try to find a way to trim that some. Same thing for the school, their process is ongoing. The superintendent's budget was presented last night. They're gonna have like community hearings over the next week. And then on the, I believe the 23rd of this month, the school board is gonna basically set what they think is gonna be their budget, they're gonna carry through hearings, et cetera. So they may change, either may come down some, but unless they come down a lot,
May go up.
yeah, or they could potentially go up too. We're certainly gonna be far from the 4%, but not because of anything the town's done. So I'm gonna, I guess, after setting that stage, at this point, I'm gonna turn it back to the chair, and I guess what we're looking for by the end of tonight is some direction as to what you want us to include in the budget, so that we can start putting the warrant together, because at the meeting on April 2nd, they have the draft warrant for the select board, so that they can approve it for a public hearing at the 16th, and then our publication deadline for the crier is on the 17th of April, so we have right away, everything's ready to print. Tonight you have all the department heads here to answer any questions, either about items that were in the budget, kind of, I'll call it the base budget, or any of the a la carte items that were added later. And so feel free to ask questions, and we've got people here to address them. Turn it over to you.
One question, when do the county commissioners give their final approval on the draft budget?
Yeah, wait, no.
I was looking at, we've got about 4 weeks of Thursday afternoon meetings to go over the budget. I did not look at a final date on that.
The last presentation is next Thursday, right before our select board meeting, and then after that, it's deliberations. Yeah, where they have a couple weeks of talking about it.
You're talking the budget advisory committee.
Yes.
They've got a couple,
Yeah.
and then they've got a third week in case we need it, so. I don't have, did you get a feel for when they might have a definite
It's,
timeline?
the schedule is set for, it was like the beginning of April.
Is their draft budget available online to review? I had to ask.
I'll let Chair address.
Well, let me address that, because we got the budget at 12:28 Sunday evening. Before our Monday meeting, to where we were just going to discuss it. That budget still contained a lot of errors and things that need to be addressed and fixed, so. I highly doubt that it's online. Because we don't have access to it on the committee itself. Unfortunately, I've requested for those things to be done and put on online. And I've been said it would be done, which
Well,
is,
they have a public hearing April 30th,
okay,
so there won't be any final decision until
Until then.
after that, so. That's
What day is that? What day is it?
April 30th,
I'm just-
Thursday.
I'm just concerned that at the same time, school has their public meeting in Deer Ryan, that would be.
That's a Thursday, April
That
30th.
was usually in May. School budget meeting.
Is it? I thought they backed it up a little bit.
It's in May,
Okay,
it's usually 2 weeks before the primary or the election, usually.
because that's the one who's basically approved by the people that work for the district, that's who shows up for this. So,
They
it moves us to go to that meeting.
They also have a May 12th date of final approval for the budget. May 12th, so
May,
it's out there.
I do have a comment on, people speaking out, like Ryan said. And I've said this many times, and I'm sorry if I'm redundant, but I am. Nobody goes to that public hearing in May for the school budget. There's 23 to 27 articles there. You can vote on them. And if you don't decide on the articles, they've got to go back and redo it. That is the time to do it. If you go to the polls and you vote yes on everything, you have no idea what you're voting on. Excuse me, because nobody's gone to the hearings. There's 50 people that goes to that hearing, and that's school board, that's school teachers, that's other facility people that go, and a few, and some of our selectmen go, and I go. And that's what goes, and everybody's scared that we might offend somebody. And we don't wanna do that, but you've got to speak out and take your own government in your own control. And we're not doing that, and we're just letting these things happen, so I just had to say that.
Well, and that's a good point, because
Yeah.
we've also seen in that meeting, the FAP 35 meeting, we've seen a budget increase at
That's right,
that meeting as well,
Yeah.
so.
absolutely,
but I,
but
Just
we
to
have to
note-
get the word out.
just a note on that school budget, that 10% that Mark was addressing. They're still working on the budget. That the 10% proposal that they gave us was taking a $1.5 million from the fund balance and then inserting it into the current proposed budget for fiscal year 27. They're also saying at the same time that fund balance is very, very low and they don't want to do that. So they're also considering not moving any money over and just having the budget as is, which would show, I'm guessing, but probably likely a 12 to 13% increase overall. So we're not done in that area, and I think I speak my piece at every meeting, and I get the thank you for your input, and that's really all I get. I don't think they want to hear what I have to say, but I say it anyway, and I think more people need to say the same thing if they feel that way. If they don't feel that way and they're okay with it, go to the meeting anyway and express that at the same time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm over exaggerating how stressful this can be for the town of Topsham, because I feel like doing the math, it's gonna become more and more unaffordable to live in this town, and
Well,
we're getting there now with looking at the cheapest house in Topsham right now is $375,000. It is a heap that needs a total gut and redo. If you do the math on that, when you look at interest rates today, what people are gonna have to pay for a mortgage, if you're a young family, you need to make about $150,000 a year
Right,
just to afford that building. And that's with a 50% debt to income ratio. That's not including your car payments or credit cards or electricity or cell phone or anything else of cost of living that comes in. It's not affordable. And if we keep going up, we enter this cyclone effect where we're seeing a reduction in enrollment at our schools. We've seen that over the past 5 or 10 years. And budgets have gone up. That means our per pupil costs are also going up. Taxes are going up. Houses are going up. And we're getting to the point where it is unaffordable for the very people that the school need to fill the seats. And if they can't afford it and we get less and less and budgets go up and up, we're entering a time that might be pretty tumultuous. And I think before we get there, we need to address it and talk about it and come to an agreement and have a vision for what this is gonna look like moving on.
Just out of curiosity, usually when people ask for a sizable increase in their budget, they're required in most places to provide a justification for the budget. Was any of that done?
The justifications for those budgets were based on the idea that the school board put together committees for a comprehensive plan, a facilities master plan, and a lot of these other things that consultants had worked with them. The comprehensive plan was really redefining the vision of the school, and because they've redefined what the vision is, focusing on student safety and a lot of other things, maybe, and they should, they're tagging those items into the budget proposal. They're saying we're increasing the budget because it aligns with our goals for the school districts. And essentially, that's their stance, that we're doing all of these things because of that. And there's still programming being added. There's still faculty and staff being added. They'll say that they're cutting new requests, but there's still a lot of new requests that are coming in. So tonight's not about the school board. I mean, we gotta talk about tonight with us, but at the same time, it weighs heavily on my mind because I'm a taxpayer here too. And I see how my taxes have gone up over the past few years, and I feel that there's a lot of people in this town. We have an average household income of around $70,000 in this town. Is that about close to accurate? I think that was listed probably a few years ago, but I think that's a pretty accurate number, plus or minus. But around $70,000 is the average household income here in the town of Topsham. But we're talking about, you need that just to buy the house in this town. And when you're a young family and you're just starting your career, it's really hard to get those funds together to be able to live here. And without finding ways to build in affordable housing into this town, school costs are gonna go drastically up. And until the school decides that they want to cut things back, we're not gonna see that. And I don't know when they're gonna make that decision, how they're gonna make that decision, but I do think that it requires a voice of people, of reason, and not just yelling and screaming at the school board because they don't want their taxes going up. But the school board is looking at the best interest of the students in their school. And it's been very clear that that is all they're interested in. They say that they're interested in the taxpayer, but it's not an actionable thing. Words and actions are two different things, and I go by the action. And I was told the other day that they still make cuts. And I said, well, then why is your budget going up? Because what they do is they cut in one area and then they add in another, and it still increases overall. So I'm at a loss because I've been following this for a long time, and the trend is exactly what I've been warning about for my tenure here on the select board. And I'm at a loss because I've said what I say every year, and I go through and I point out data-driven points and numbers that I think are realistic. But I'm only one person, and they don't seem to listen. They hear me, but they're not listening.
I just want some clarification, I'm not criticizing, but I thought I heard you say that the school population is declining substantially.
It is.
It is.
So why would you need, if the school population is declining, why would you need a massive increase in the budget?
Few reasons. One, special education services are going up. We currently, 25% of our student body in our schools are served under special education. That requires mandated paraprofessionals, ed techs, or additional support staff for those. The state average is 20%. So we're above state average on special education. And the other part of it is wages and contractual obligations. 52% of the overall budget, which is about $31 million, goes to paying faculty and staff. And those raises, they just went through a union negotiation. They got some pretty big raises, but according, moving up to cost of living and catching up with inflation. So those are big things that contractual obligations. Part of the other reasons are the same reasons we have. There's steady costs that we can't control, like health insurance, and capital improvements or contracted services. Everything is going up in that role, so that all goes up. And then when we talk about what services we need to have for kids, we're finding that kids need more services now. I say we, I'm grouping myself as a community here, but overall, that increase in services is really driving cost right now. So even though enrollment goes down, if the teacher to student ratio is one teacher to every 14 kids, and then that goes to 1 to 10 or 1 to 8, it seems to me that we could probably, at some point, I don't want to say it out loud, but we need to get rid of some faculty and staff. And that's what I think our superintendent says is tier 2 budget cuts, when they really have to make some tough decisions about programming or positional cuts, because they've already done everything they can according to what is mandated by the state and what is mandated by contracts.
I would like to say something in defense of the people who have put these budgets together. I have been on the finance committee for, 15 years or so. And I don't think I've ever once seen anybody or any department that has added, that has done more than put together what they felt was a bare minimum for them to operate. And my main concern is that we do not cut stuff to the point that it makes it very hard for any of these departments to do the job and to do the job right. Because you sit there and these people who say, I don't want my taxes, I don't want them, and they will be the first people to speak up when their road isn't plowed correctly, when somebody doesn't immediately respond on an emergency, when their kids have a problem at school and there's nobody there to support them. The county job, the budget, the same thing. They do, in my opinion, a damn good job putting these numbers together, and I would feel horrible if we cut them to the point that we are jeopardizing the service we provide to the town. I would think,
We have to take care of that.
yes.
We won't cut, I don't think anybody would think to cut the town to supplement this. Every year we've gone through this, so unlike Gail, I've been here 100 years too, so. And I agree, I think our own town very diligently and is very fiscally responsible for putting budgets together, and I think we need to support them. I don't have a problem with, I do have a problem with 12% increases. Year after year after year, these increases, and it's not just young people, they can't live here, they can't afford a house, and it's not just in Topsham. But also your seniors, you really are forcing a lot of them out of their homes. And there's not a lot of choices. There is programs on the state, there's programs here, but when it goes down to it, some are being forced out. And it affects everybody is what I'm trying to say, not just the kids, not just the town, not just the county. I sat on the county budget for 2 terms, And I thought they did an excellent job trying to put that together, and I think they sacrificed a lot of repairs over the years. So I don't disagree with what Gail says, but I don't think, I know me for one, I'm not ready to hatchet anything. School budget maybe.
So I think we have, I was gonna say,
I was gonna say,
we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna ask everyone what their questions are. And then you can start with you. Do you have anything before they can bring?
Well, I have a couple questions on the budget itself, but I wanted to just bring up, I like the fact when we send out the tax bills that it says this percentage is going to the schools, this percentage is going to this and that. Maybe we could add a couple more that just say, you know, things that were out of our control so that they know where things go. For example, insurance is going up 126%. That's really high.
What is
Insurance.
this, health insurance or?
It's is that for, I'm under just the insurance, Kathy, the one on page 23. For ambulance attendants, public officials, police, it's everybody, right? All insurance.
That's the one, the negative number when you reallocate.
Oh, the negative number that makes everything.
Question, they can go on to the single insurance.
That's not really going up 126%. When last year, we quote unquote, hid the money we had available for wage increases so that they weren't necessarily obvious to the unions we were negotiating with in the payroll adjustment, which is part of that insurance line. And then when Kathy went to do this year's budget, she moved the wages that went to, say, the police department to their section and the wages that went to the fire department to their section. And it made that 80,000 negative because we carried some money forward from the year before too that we used for the wage adjustments. So that's what messed up the percentages. So in this section, because of the fact that the readjustments and the negative, that really is 122%. I don't know if you have a better idea what it actually is, Kathy. About 5%.
So is there any other part of the budget that we don't have control over, like the library is a private nonprofit? Do we want to include what their fee is? You know what I'm saying? Like there are places where we don't have a choice and we don't have any impact. Can we include, I don't know how we can.
Most of the budget you can make choices on. I mean, like we have to have our contract with the Humane Society, or we have to have some other way of taking care of stray animals in town. And you know, if we're gonna have a police department, we have to pay wage taxes on the wages. So yeah, there isn't too much that we don't control it in.
We really can't cut anything like I'm with, what's your, yeah, what's your?
We've intentionally been very lean on people. You know, the only person we added last year was the community paramedic, that had been in a grant and we took her full time and she showed there's a lot of merit to the program. And I think she saved us money on calls and everything else. This year we haven't added any positions. We're pretty lean. We're to the point that, tax clerk office, if more than one person takes time off, you start to worry if we can fill up the positions we need to, you know, taking people's money in. There's other positions that someone's not around and the work just doesn't get for the week, it doesn't get done for the week they're not around. So we don't have a lot of that as far as positions to try.
Yeah, we really can't, and that's one of the things, you know, because we can't control the county, we can't control the school, and so it just makes it difficult, like you were saying, Ruth, about seniors and not being able to even afford their houses. How do we fix this? You know, how do we?
that's the question. That's the most important big question. Every year we sit here and every government goes through this and says the same thing. How do we fix it? We have to come up with solutions.
I'll tell you what I did, maybe I shouldn't have. But as Kathy and I sat down and we had our spreadsheet and we're playing with the numbers and I said, I want to get this so it's at 4. And we knew, and I pointed out last August when we decided how much surplus the select board was going to put forward before we set the tax rate. I said, we're not going to have this amount next year because we pretty much spent our extra surplus. So what we did is initially Public Works had requested $750,000 for paving. And initially I was hoping we could get Tedford Road done this year. And so to make the numbers work, I took $250,000 out of paving and I took pretty close to $1 million out of Tedford Road and said, we'll put more money aside this year and then hopefully we can finish it off next year and actually do the project. So maybe I shouldn't have, you know, maybe I should have left the money in so we could keep doing those projects, but I've taken the stuff that Ruth has said, and not just Ruth, you know, my father-in-law, he talks to his friends at McDonald's in the morning.
Oh, I love him.
And there's a lot of people, there's a house we own right now in town. And usually I pride myself, I can find some creative way to get it back to that person. You know, they've got equity in the house and I can get them to refinance it, or they've got a tax refund coming, or they can borrow it from a friend. And I've had a very good success rate getting people's foreclosed properties back to them. I can't figure what comes out from this one. There's this woman, she calls me almost crying and she says, please don't take my house from me. And I try to gently keep the pressure on because I want her to try to find a solution, but I also don't want her to have a heart attack at night. So I said, don't worry. I said, the way the law is right now, I'd have to give you a 60-day notice before, and then we list your house with a realtor. And then if I can find a realtor to take it, then, which I'm not sure I would, because the house is not in all good condition, because she can barely afford to live. So I think about people like her, and I'm like, I understand the county's got deferred maintenance, you know, but on the other hand, you can't do it all in 1 year. You know, they probably need to do what we're trying to do, pick projects, work towards them, because I don't want to put more people out of their houses. And there's plenty of people in Topsham that are doing well, but there's plenty that aren't. You know, I've got, one of my sons couldn't afford a house in Topsham, so he lives in Richmond. The other son, he owns his house in Topsham because I financed them. And they're working hard and they want to be in town, but we make to the town that much more unaffordable, you know, when our taxes are too high. So my personal, and what I did for the budget, I was shooting for that 4, because I'm like, I want to try to have Topsham's town not be part of the problem. But it does frustrate me when I look at the hard work that all the people in this back of this room do. And they're working with me, you know, would the chief like to have another police officer, if you could find one? I'm sure he would. When I said to them, I said, no new positions, because I'm trying to find a way. I am committed to trying to pay the people that we have fairly, you know, in the market rate. And so to me, it's more important to make sure they get market raises than to add people. But I can tell you in the future, because I listen to the scanner all day, we're probably gonna have to start finding ways to supplement our fire department. Because it isn't at all uncommon that we may have 3 rescue calls at once or something, or we get someone. So I don't know where I'm going with that, just that I'm torn myself. I would have liked to have maybe taken the attitude that the school or the county did and finished funding Tedford Road and funding some more paving. But I thought, you know, I don't want to put someone out of their house, and if we can try to be responsible, we can. I mean, at home, you've got budgets, you've got needs. You ultimately say, all right, this is what I've got to spend, you know, let me find a way to spend as wisely as I can, because unfortunately, we've had quite a few years here where we had manna from heaven. We had Governor Mills came in and she ramped up the school funding to the 55% that had always been promised. The side benefit of that was there was new revenue coming into the schools, so that it wasn't so bad on the town's tax rate. We had the COVID money that came into the towns and the federal government and everyone else. And Derek, wisely so, tried to make sure we only used ours on capital projects because he knew it was going to end at some point and he didn't want to have to try to find ways to backfill it. But the days of easy money are done. The federal budget's out of control. And we're probably going to see skyrocketing inflation, in my guess, in the next couple of years. So again, I tried to be as frugal as I could. But.
I would like to commend him for it. Yeah.
Yes, he had, and really, I've watched him try to save people's homes and work with them, and he's done a fantastic job, so I do commend him on that. So they won't lose it, and there are a few people in Topsham, other than that woman, but they haven't foreclosed on them yet, so you don't see it, but there are more. When you go house to house, you see a lot.
Well, this is a rehash of what I said at the school board meeting, but we basically have a monopoly running our health insurance. State of Maine for the most part, if you're a public employee.
Yeah.
And who the heck is negotiating these contracts, my question? Because I'm at the point where, you know, you call every town and city manager, you know, in the next, you know, the adjacent counties and say, you know, we need to get in front of this committee and say, you know, we're not accepting this. We'll put it out to bid for 3 parties. Maybe we'll make it exclusive. Put some heat on Anthem and just say, you know, we're sick of it. You guys, because, you know, they're making record profits. It's just insane. So even if you can knock off 1 or 2 points, but, you know, being the ugly mean guy, so be it. Let's do it, because We have no other, we don't realize it with these other small vendors we use. So. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we could certainly, I could draft a letter for you guys to the Health Trust Board of Trustees, because they're actually the ones that contract with Anthem.
Who appoints them to the trust, the board?
They are, I guess, self-appointed. You may recall that I asked permission to join a couple years ago, and you guys allowed me to apply. And they said they were looking for someone that could be around for 10 years, and they thought I was too old. So
Longer than tooth.
So,
You call a lawyer on that?
Discrimination.
but they're the ones that hire Anthem to manage it. I know reading their newsletters, they claim the health trust, I'm sure it's not true, is spending down its reserves too. The big factor is drugs. You know, these GLP-1s, to the extent they're starting to get paid for by healthcare, they're scared of because it's doing a big effect on their insurance rates.
But now the prices are going down, so.
But they weren't covering them. But then as Medicaid starts to cover, or Medicare starts to cover them, they're getting pressure to do the same thing. But I could draft a letter that you guys could approve at a meeting to the Health Trust Board of Trustees saying, you need to do
We
something.
have this guy Ryan, he'd be willing to submit. Yeah, that's just one big number that keeps popping up, just somewhere we at least have some impact, or at least let them know we're happy with what's
I mean, it may be to no avail, but where else are we gonna go? We're, like you say, we're pretty thin. Now, where are we gonna cut? Can't do anything.
No, I really, the only place if you were trying to cut something would be more capital money. But at some point, you know, you're gonna
That's gonna.
not maintain stuff and, you know,
That's the inflation for those products, services.
Just out of curiosity, I'm curious about this, about the people in this room. How do we feel? This is a two-part question. If we increase the budget for Topsham tonight by $1 million, what would that bring a percentage to? I know that's kind of a roundabout thing, but gauging everybody in here and listening to Gail, because I agree with Gail, people spend a lot of time in working hard on these budgets, only to have people like us critique it. And, you know, I go over it with a fine tooth comb, not because I don't like it, just because I have a lot of questions and I want to make sure that I can answer anybody that comes to me. But how do we feel about adding, and I'm gonna throw a number out there, $1 million, so that we can get back to the $750,000 worth of paving and give the departments the things that maybe they do need because we've been scrimping on. It's a very, very tough question to answer, but that's what we're here for. I'm just trying to gauge how people feel about that, just because, you know, I think our town is great. I love Topsham. I think we have the best community in the state. And I'd like to keep it that way, but I don't want to price people out, and I'm torn like Mark is. But at the same time, I don't want to keep, you know, little hairline going up and up and up while everybody else is killing it.
We can't use the tip for that 750,000 on Tedford Road where it connects, the way it connects.
there's kind of a false perception that the TIFs have these big pocket of free money.
Well, I know they don't, but
So yes, Tedford Road can be, money from the Highland Green TIF can help pay for Tedford Road
that's what I
improvements.
thought.
And in fact, we have 116,000 or 14,000 sitting in that TIF that hasn't been spent, that was kind of from prior years. So, and I was planning to use that money toward the project when the time comes. To the extent when we do this, let's say you approved, like we're probably not doing the project this year, but anyway, let's say we approve 400,000 towards that project. To the extent I can, what I do with the assistant town manager and the assessor back in August, is I've got a spreadsheet where I look at our budget and I try to figure out what parts of it I can attribute to particular TIFs. That's when we get maximum benefit from our TIFs, is when we do things we would have done anyway. So long story short, we'd still have to come up with, if we were at $1 million to the budget, let's say all goes for Tedford Road. Kathy will probably tell you in a second what that would change the 9.25 to.
So 13.46.
To 13.46. But I would try to get that out of a TIF so that it may help with our revenue sharing percentage in the future.
That's what I thought. That's my thinking. We got money, use it that hard.
I see a lot, I hear about the stresses and strains on homeowners, on the schools and what have you, but I never hear anything in these meetings about the business community and what they're doing. You have monster companies here. Like Market Basket that are all over the, New England. You have other big companies. Crooker is building and tearing down trees every chance they get. John Wasilewski is doing the same thing. How come we never hear about what their contribution should be?
Oh, they could pay plenty in property taxes,
We never talk about that here,
but
what they do. I'm
yeah,
just
we
curious.
get property taxes from all these businesses. We get excise taxed over 100,000 a year from Crooker's Crops because they
Right.
register them in Topsom. So they pay a lot, tomorrow morning we have a meeting of Topsom Development Inc. And they'll ask me to tell them what's up, and I'm gonna share these numbers with them, and they're gonna tell me these numbers make it hard to do business in town. Because it raises their expenses they can't control too.
They won't come either if they're true. I mean, a lot of businesses cite, and I love the business world, but it's our electricity costs and our sub taxes in the state of Maine, not just in Topsom. So why would other businesses come that would be productive to us if we keep going up too? So like you say, we have to think about those things as well. There's a whole effect here.
I'm gonna be Debbie Downer here. We've spent almost an hour talking about yachts. And I don't think that really addresses what we're here for this evening. So I understand everybody's concerns, but I personally would like to move on. And I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toe.
No, I started to say that, and then,
Yeah,
so, yes, please. You discuss the items that you've raised.
all right, basically, the finance committee was fine with all of the department budgets. And we just looked at the extras. The dog, police dog, we decided no, because we didn't get the impression that it was that important or critical to the police department. We were in favor of the take-home cruisers. We're in favor of the TDI request. And the consultant for the national areas plan, we were kind of on the fence on that. Because not having really, I didn't get a feel for what the cost might be on that and what impact it would have. So that's still up in the air type thing. So that's where we were at.
We talk about the dog. I mean, we basically, basically agrees. Good investment.
I'd like somebody to explain that. Why don't you support that?
Well, for $35,000 a year for a dog that went out 44 times and half of that was on a social type basis, that seemed like a very high price. When those dollars could be put towards the cruisers that would make all the vehicles last longer, they would be better taken care of because each officer would have his own. He'd take some pride in it. We just thought the money would be better spent on the cruisers. And
I just feel that we would be taking a major tool out of our toolbox to combat. And public safety, if we start saying, well, we haven't used it, well. We've got a boat sitting over there, we don't use either, but if we need it tomorrow, it's there.
but it's not costing us $35,000 a year, is it?
And then
That's
we
a
say,
small
they
place.
prove it.
Yeah, there's, and I'm,
The state trooper has a dog that.
Yeah.
Who use that's trained well and.
Yeah.
Stuff. If those are the little things that meant. Do a half a cent on our budget or half a mil. But it's those kind of things, if we can evaluate them, so we can have cruises, like Gail said. I think it's a good compromise myself.
So how do we phase out the current dog that is aging out at 10 years of age? He's been trained, he does his job well, but at some point we were thinking, when we discussed it at our meeting, we were talking about how this is looking into the future. And yes, it takes time to train a dog too. So if we got the replacement dog this year, that dog's not going to be ready for service until it's fully trained. So this dog that's aging out can continue to work until the other dog is trained. So there wouldn't be a lapse in time. And I think that was one of the reasons we were talking about maybe supporting having this dog. Any other comments from this?
wouldn't that increase the cost though, if you're supporting 2 dogs? While this one's coming up to be trained, are we looking at the same 30,000 a year. You're on the hot seat.
Yeah. Public Works or something?
His turn's coming.
So the dog, if we get approved for a new dog, the next available school wouldn't be until March of 2027. So we wouldn't be purchasing it until, let's say, January or February of next year. So about a year out. Our dog now turned 10 in September. We're still using it. And to be honest, we're just gonna use it until it starts having injuries, age issues, can't jump, can't run as fast, those type of things. So right now, we're making do with the dog. We don't have, and I shouldn't even say making do. Right now, the dog is fine. So it's just when you get to about 10, for a dog, that's when things start to break down. And then it could cost us more, in other ways as far as injuries and insurance and so forth. So that's where we stand with the dog, unless I missed something.
If we chose to not fund a new police dog, we currently have an officer who's pretty high up in the canine training in the state. This is a speculation question, and I'm sorry to ask it, but what does that do with that position? My fear would be that maybe he found another place that he could train a dog and be a part of a department that had a dog in a time when we're having a hard time finding police officers. Is that extra cost worth keeping an officer on our rolls?
Yeah, that's always the option, right? You could leave and go somewhere else. With 3 down right now and not having a heck of a lot of luck. So that's something, it could be an issue.
Right, and the budget is really, it's a year one budget, which includes the purchase price of the dog, correct? That's not,
Yes.
that's not the ongoing maintenance,
Right.
it's gonna be
Yes.
slow.
And then when this dog, if we were to purchase this dog, becomes the Topsham police dog, then the former dog will retire and become a pet of the owner. Is that correct?
Yes, at that point, we just,
And we don't
we
feed
put
it
something in
anymore.
writing saying this is now your pet, your property. We don't take any ownership in that. And the training, if we did purchase a dog, next March, it would go to 14 weeks of training. When they graduated that training, it would be good for tracking, protection, those type of items. Then generally they wait another year till the dog's another year older before they do drug recognition type thing. So it would be when it March, April, May, May into June, it would be trained for certain.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it would be 2028 before the dog was actually fully trained.
Yes, we wouldn't even purchase it until, so I'm sorry, we're in 26 now, sorry, getting confused. So we're talking about purchasing it in, let's say, January, February 27, when it would graduate in, let's say, May of 27, it would be certified for searching and so forth. It just wouldn't have the drug training till probably 28.
This is a question for our town manager. My understanding is the replacement police patrol dog and the take-home police cruisers are already in the budget. Is that correct?
The patrol dog, yes, is already in the budget. The cruisers, we were planning to buy 2 this year anyway. So I'll let the chief address why it really isn't an impact on so much of this year's budget.
As far as the take-home process that we're
If
talking.
we wanted to go take home cars,
Yeah.
it really wouldn't add money this year.
No, it wouldn't add money. So what happened is, when we start doing the budget in December, it's still a little early when we're looking at cars that need to be replaced. So what we've come down to is we have a 2017 that's coming up on 100,000 miles, needs to be replaced. We have a 2019 that's at 146,000 miles, I believe. That needs to come off the rolls. And we need to get rid of both cars. So we wouldn't be looking, when we were talking a month or so ago about taking cars and keeping them for other officers, these would not be good cars to keep, especially because the car that we purchased with this year's budget, we just put on the road a week ago. So we'd basically be talking exactly a year that we'd still have those two cars racking up mileage. So we're not looking at keeping those two cars. We already had two in the budget before we even started talking about take-home cars.
Right.
So our proposal now at this point is just, it wouldn't cost anything for the town. We wouldn't be buying any extra equipment. If you want me to roll into it, I can talk about. We had thrown out a couple options once we realized that we weren't gonna need any more equipment. We were gonna try to keep cars this year. You know, one was if you don't like the proposal, that's the end of it. Another was to table it until next year. Our third proposal that we would prefer to try would be to, right now, 6 of our 12 cars go home with officers, between myself, the lieutenant, 2 detectives, and the 2 canine cars. So what we would propose is allow 2 more officers to take cars home that we already have. And basically that would give us 9 months to watch take home cars versus the other cars that would stay here and be shared. It would give us more information. When I talked to you a month or 2 ago, we only had 2 cars really to compare. We had 1 car that was shared and 1 car that was a take home car for its entire life. So we were looking at adding 2 more cars to the take home policy. And then when we start talking next December for relatively low cost, we will have a better idea about take home versus just keeping them here as fleet cars, pool cars.
Talk about your mileage policy, what was it?
So yeah, I've already built a policy based on what other departments have. And I think when I talked to you, I told you if Farmington goes 30, they're allowed to take it 30 minutes out of town. Winthrop allows 30 miles out of town. My proposal would be 25 miles out of town. We have 1 officer that lives 35 miles out of town. If what we could do is we could say, let's say if you are all agreeable or the town manager was agreeable to the 25-mile mark that I've said, anybody that lives out of town further than that could repay the town mileage the same way. An officer uses their own car to go to training right now. Town has to pay them for their mileage. We could use a federal rate. We could use that rate in reverse. If an officer wants to take a car 35 miles, you could say 10 miles over is, times the federal rate, which is I think 0.725 right now. You could pay that in reverse back to the town so that the town's getting something for their investment in the officer having the car to take off.
Thank you.
Is there still a big lag time in terms of when you pick these up versus when you order them?
It's not as bad as it was a couple of years ago. It wasn't too bad. We're in March, so we got the car in December and we just got it built, which actually wasn't too bad. We got it at a good time, timing's everything, and the people that built it were able to get it relatively quickly in.
Very nice.
If I could throw out one more thing, and I apologize, on the take-home cars. Several people have asked me since then, do we really want somebody that just wants to come to Topsham PD for a take-home car? And I've got to tell you, since I've been here, especially because I live here, what I have wanted since I came here was people in their mid to late 20s that were from Topsham that have some buy-in in our community and want to stay here. And that hasn't happened for applicants. So it got to the point with, especially the lieutenant and I, when we talk about our applicants, most of our applicants are very young, 20, 21, 22, without much life experience. And we had a pretty deep discussion about this. We can keep hoping for what we want, which is somebody in the late 20s with some life experience, but they've already made, hopefully, most of the big mistakes. But that's not what we're getting. So we can hold our breath and keep waiting for people that aren't coming, or we could try something different. And this is just young kids, whether we like it or not, seem to want take-home cars. And it's an idea, and right now it's a relatively cheap idea that we just think it's worth.
Especially when you're down 3.
Yeah,
Need
Yeah.
recruiting tools.
it's tough. We have an applicant that we really like right now, but he's finishing his college career, so we've got a couple more months. But even if we bring him on, he'll go to the academy in August, that's 4.5 months. So basically, we're almost a year out before he's even starting to answer calls. And I think I said this last time, the experience matters. This kid's 20, so he's gonna be 21, answering calls with issues that he's never had to deal with. Experience matters in life. It's gotta be our people. So, yeah, it's tough.
Does anyone else have any questions about the budget? Anything else we want to talk about? Okay, next steps.
So I guess maybe I'll just ask on each issue if is everyone okay with the extra 5250 for the fire department for the drug box?
Yes.
Okay. Police dog, sounds like maybe we're split or maybe people have changed their mind. So I guess select board first. Do you want me to include or leave the police dog in the budget, I should say?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like it's unanimous. Good. Finance committee?
No,
No,
Okay.
There's no expense for the.
Yes.
Can we ask?
okay, let's clarify that, okay. You said keeping the police dog, you're not saying replacing. Two different
No.
things.
Keeping it in the budget, it's already in the budget, please don't.
That's a fair question, though.
Yeah.
So right now, there is a bunch, about 30,000 in overtime each year that's spent on the officer going to training. That's already in the payroll part of the budget because we've got the officer. The piece that was the extra was the actual purchase of the new dog. So there were three choices. One is to buy the dog and basically keep the program going as far as we know. So that it's got the overtime already in the budget and it's got the cost for the new dog in the budget. The next choice would be just to let the current dog serve as long as it can and then be done. The overtime's already in the budget to cover that, but we wouldn't put the capital in to purchase the new one. The third choice would be to replace the dog. The overtime is already in the budget. We need to make sure the capital stays in for the new dog. Would there be additional overtime for the training beyond what we already pay for training with the old dog? Would we have to go to training with two for a while or something?
Well, what we would do would be keep the old dog, so he'd still be going to the 2 trainings with Joby until the new dog came. And then when he went to the school next March, we retire the old dog and he would just be the new dog at that point. So it'd be a end date, start.
So the hour and a half, or the hour of overtime he gets paid each day to feed the dog, can he feed the 2 in the same hour, or would he be looking for 2 hours of overtime?
Well, my argument. I'm sorry.
You just said that by then, one would be retired.
Yeah.
It would be
But until you purchase the
you know,
new one,
you know,
one.
I think we've overlapped.
No, it would be
And
a
one
start
about the
end
next.
date, so we don't have that, yeah, it would just. We would end with one and start with the next, and then he'd be going away almost immediately into the full training program then. And I think we talked about that, there's $6,000 in training additional for replacement costs if we're 3 down next March. If we were only 2 down, we could move him to a shift where we could just take him off the books. And he'd be just at the training Monday through Friday, but we wouldn't have any replacement.
Would this be a new handler or would the same guy that's got Joby be handling the new dog?
It'd be the same officer, the officer, sure.
So what say all of you?
Individually.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
For
sir.
the dog.
You're for the dog?
I vote for it.
I'm ambivalent, I'm more in favor of the vehicle's quality of life for the officers.
Vicky?
But there's no expense.
Next year we want.
You're okay with the dog? Is that what I'm hearing?
no.
Nope.
I just feel it's a good, like I said before, it's not against the dog, but the budget's tight, it's a good swap. This,
I'm in favor of the.
So it looks like we got outvoted.
Or is it 3 to 3? The-
4.
Yeah, I think it's 3-3. Well, no,
I'm gonna abstain, I'm in the middle.
Two.
3-3.
so,
So the finance committee doesn't recommend purchasing the new dog, but you're okay with the current dog being used?
Yeah.
Very nice. So we'll figure out how to portray it in the budget, but basically we'd make the capital, we show a split vote on that
Yeah.
piece.
Well, isn't it a tie with the finance committee right now?
I think we want to abstain for.
Oh,
I guess I would request, with all due respect, that an alternative method, are there grants, we have a lot of veterans in the community, are there ways to get donation, a donation, 35,000 for a dog's a lot of money. Maybe there are other ways to skin
The cost of the dog, the 35,000 overtime is already built in, so it's just 15,000 is the cost of the new dog.
Yeah, and just one other little point is that we wouldn't be able to, as a police department, ask people for money because in Maine, law enforcement can't solicit money, so.
I meant a donation of the animal, or a grant for the cost of the,
I will tell you, we did look at grants, and because this is not our first dog, they have grants out there. If you're just getting into a canine program, they don't have grants to basically supplement, and replace a dog, so.
when we were doing our discuss, and we spent a lot of time on this, I mean, it's a real conundrum. I thought we'd said that there were other dogs in the radius of the other communities.
the state has one, county's a comfort dog, we don't have
County has 2 dogs.
so they do have a,
They were talking about that last time, that they're looking at, they only service their dogs for 8 years.
Yeah, the county, the other dog would be good for searches, of non-criminal situations. It's not,
Like a Nicky dog.
I don't believe it's trained to, yeah.
and our dog also helps other
Dog is
communities
not-
as well, so
This act
it's not just, it sits here, it helps other communities, if there's a need in
Sag
another
dog, yeah.
community.
Should we get
Yeah,
reimbursed for that?
Majority only does.
I don't think. it's- I think it's just a
It's
mutual.
also my understanding that the county does not fund George.
I'm really torn on it. In terms of budget, there was very little wiggle room. I guess I will say my vote is no.
So that makes it tie then. 3-3.
no, that's 4 no's and 3 yeses.
Yeah, 3-3.
No, she just changed, she was.
She was an
abstention.
She was an abstention, which counts as a no.
Which one is it?
Raise your hand if you support it and you're on the finance committee. Alright, so 3 yes, raise your hand if you're against it. 3 no, yes, it's a tie. Alright. Take home cruisers, select board, would you like? Well, I guess we got 3 choices. So 1 is yes, go ahead. 2 is either no, or let's just wait till next year, table it. 3 is to try the chief's thing of allowing him to do up to two additional officers under a test policy.
Now, that last option, we're still looking at 2 cars that's in the budget this year.
No matter what, we need
That,
2 cars.
and that doesn't change. So the pilot option doesn't necessarily increase the budget for this year. It gives us the opportunity to see how effective it really is.
And for sure, if you wanted to proceed after the test, we would be asking for 2 cars next year instead of 1, right?
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
And those 2, the test would be the 2 supervisors, correct?
Well, we'll see. One of the supervisors is the person I was talking about earlier that was 35 miles out of town, so I'm not sure if they will.
Want to do the
support.
budget, the climate
Yeah.
change.
We have option 3. We have enough cars right now to do that program and keep up.
With 2 and keeping some pool cars, well, having to be like, hey, it keeps a car just in case something happens to people. Shit.
That gives us the opportunity to have the same conversation next year. To
Yes,
see if we wanna fund it or not,
Yes.
and that will give us addition, I'm in favor of option 3.
So select board, sounds like option 3, all those in favor, raise your
I
hand.
like option 3.
So, finance committee,
Option 3.
votes unanimous on both.
thank you.
TDI, 20,000 to hire or contract with Midcoast Council of Government for services to help with their implement the strategic plan. That money is eligible to come out of a TIF. Now, again, it doesn't mean it's a full sitting there to pay for it, but it means it can be sheltered to help us potentially get more revenue sharing in the future. Select board, what's your preference on that? All five. And finance committee, something you guys said yes.
Favor,
earlier.
yep.
The original request was for 10,000 from the Conservation Commission to be able to hire a consultant to help with the natural resources plan. I've later heard some talk about maybe potentially wanting more money. And I also, we did some research, and this could come out of, if everyone wants, we'd have to put a special article in the warrant, but we can do that. Out of the recreation, or the open space impact fees. So this could be funded without actually taking money out of or raising it through taxes. I mean, I could have planner Salati come up and tell me what number that the committee is looking for.
I will say that Eric Whitney is here from the Conservation Commission. You've now probably a good time to promote him. Yep, there you go. If I can be here to supplement you, Eric, if you have anything to say right now.
Great. Just sorry I'm not there in person, but yeah, available for any questions or anything, but go ahead.
My understanding was that it was 10,000 to get them started on the process. They understood that the budget was tight before we knew for sure that it could come out of this open space impact fund, which unlike a TIF, it kind of is a pot of money sitting there that we've been taking, haven't really had a good use for. So I think that makes it a simpler decision, but they started with 10,000 to get a consultant to get them started and importantly help them apply for grants, because there are grants that can pay for this type of work, but they, I would say perhaps judiciously, were aware that applying for grants is not as easy as just, you know, hitting an apply button and that's it. There is time, there is effort that goes into those, so they're asking for some money to start the process, not to fund the entirety of the process.
So the request would be 10,000 from the natural areas of the open space impact fee.
And they're saying they will cover it, 10,000 should do it. They don't wanna go.
They want to use that to try to leverage to get grants for the rest.
Okay.
Much is in that fund that we take.
About 60,000.
I think it's about 75.
Right.
Yeah.
35.
Yeah.
Do we have any other upcoming intended uses for that fund?
The only thing I might, it would take ordinance change. I might propose it could also be used towards the community center. Might be a way to help fund part of that, but I'm not proposing that right now, so. But I guess my point is we don't want to drain it because there may be other things to use it towards.
Right.
I will say right now, it's pretty limited on what you can spend that on towards. It's like land acquisition and a few other things, but that's why it's been sitting. But
There's not much land you can get for 75,000.
My question, and I'm not sure, maybe Eric might be a question for you. This initial proposal of $10,000 that we're looking to spend to get everything started. What happens if we don't receive grants or we don't receive the money that we need to finish the product? Are we just wasting that $10,000? Or would you have to come back and ask for more money next year to finish the project off?
Yes.
I believe it would be the latter. Yeah. So most of those, that initial would be for getting grants. And then the bulk of the cost that we're not sure of is the GIS assistance to kind of build the plan. So I think your latter would be the answer, coming back if we used it or if it didn't work out.
So what's the total of the projected fees to complete the project? Let's say we didn't get any grants and we were just funding it, how much would it cost?
That we don't know because we're kind of relying on the consultants, like putting out an RFP to give a cost estimate. And also note, I'm the new guy on the commission. No one else was able to arrive, so that information could be out there, and we could dig that up and get that back to you. But as far as I know, there isn't a specific cost estimate we have for the total project.
Thought I read.
Kristen, I'll say that there were cost estimates from 5 years ago.
No, there was, in their proposal this year, there was some line item cost estimates, and I feel like it was close in their plan that they submitted to you, it was close to like 55,000.
That sounds about right. They had some cost estimates that were near like 40, but they felt too old to me to be helpful with how quickly costs have gone up, as we spent, quite a while talking about tonight. So I had been kind of hesitant to have them rely on those too much, because I worried that they would go, oh, it's gonna be 40, that's what we heard, and then they'd get really burned by that. I think that, the Complete Streets Plan recently got a grant for what, 65,000, and the Climate Action Plan did a $50,000 grant. And those did get those two projects, or Climate Action Plan went through with that, with staff match, which is, a little bit more amorphous thing. I think the Complete Streets Plan is moving forward seemingly fine with that. I think that those numbers are not a bad place to be. I will say that the fund that funded both of those projects, the Community Resiliency Partnership, does include natural areas planning under one of its allowed uses, and that is a no match grant from the state. I think that could potentially be a good option for this project if it's still a grant going through the state. So we've gotten the last 2 or 3 we've applied for.
So another option might be, rather than saying, you can spend 10,000 from this and then have town meeting approve it and then find out in October that they can't, say, wait for next town meeting to come back. Is we could pick a number, say 50,000, and leave it at the select board's discretion. So we could word it in such a way that says the select board is allowed to authorize up to 50,000 from the open space fund to pay for a natural areas plan. You guys could start with authorizing the 10, and then hopefully they can leverage a grant, see how it goes. But if it turns out, comes back in November, there's nothing else, then the select board have the authority to authorize some more money without having to go back to town meeting.
You read my mind.
Or not, right?
That's right.
That's why I
The
get
starting
my-
process for a grant writer, though, that's, really, and you have no other option. You have to get that grant writing, or it's gonna be, dead in the water. So I tell them to roll up their sleeves and write assiduously to get as many grants, throw in a police dog grant in there. But earn their keep.
And the question is, are you comfortable with just 25,000 left in that fund if for some reason or other?
It's 57,000, I looked it up, it's the traffic impact fees, that's 75,000.
So then you're talking 7,000 left in that fund. Is that something you're comfortable with?
Honestly, there isn't much we can do with that money, because Maine's so expensive that we really, even if we left it at 50,000, there isn't much we can do with it. And there's been more and more talk about whether impact fees are legal if you're not actually using them. A lot of this is sat there for years, so it might not be a bad idea to spend this on an appropriate purpose rather than sitting there.
Spending on this, I'm spending on this, all of it.
So where are we putting them going?
So I guess you want me to ask you to vote on just the 10, or do you want me to ask you to vote on authority for the select board to approve up to, say, 50?
Should it not be the whole amount, so
Yeah.
we can't
The
use
whole
it for
amount.
anything?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause why would we leave like 5,000?
Select board, or there may be more, is more money gonna come into that for potentially as part of Fort Union Park or whatever. number
If
you-
more money comes into that as part of 4 Union Park, that will be a lot of money. And it would be best to divorce it from this, but they're also asking for a waiver for that. I think they have standing for the waiver, so I would just say don't think about that.
So we aren't necessarily trying to kill the fund, because there may still be more money coming in.
Okay.
So,
I have a question, out of this planning, I may be wrong, it may be my fault, but I see a lot of plans online that have been published going back 10 years or more, but I never see what's actually accomplished anywhere. Is it possible to get a list put out by the town of the various plans that have actually been accomplished, whether it comes to conservation or pedestrian safety or bike paths? I'd like to see, as a citizen of the town, as a taxpayer, what's actually been done. I've written grant proposals all my life.
part of
I
that,
always have to justify with results before I can get another plan.
part of that is an easy one. Because we had a Bowden intern, that his project 2 summers ago was to compile a list of the plans that have been done. Or list of plans, not necessarily done. So we could easily get you a list of all the plans that have been prepared. As far as how many have been put into action,
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see,
I'd
just
say
the
not-
results.
not a lot.
Well, maybe we ought to focus on getting plans that have already been published or put out before starting new plans.
But
I mean, I can't get a grant from the NIH. I've been doing grants all my life. You can't get a grant like from the National Science Foundation or the NIH. If you ask for 4 years of funding, you have to show what you've done for those 4 years before you can apply for your next grant. It's not
Probably a lot
just
of
planning.
Probably a lot of the plans are their moments in time. Like, for instance, right now, we're paying an engineering firm to come up with a final design for the Tedford Road sidewalks. Hopefully, in the next year to two, we're gonna have the money to fund it and build it. There was a plan done in 2017 for the Topsham Fair Mall Road on we should have traffic pass through their best. We were asked if you wanted to execute that plan a couple years ago at Maine DOT when Market Basket wanted to come in and they wanted us to force them to execute parts. The plan called for a boulevard that would have had for most of Topsham Fair Mall Road, one lane in each direction with a median with trees in it and curb. As emergency services people, we're like, you could never do that, because as soon as you get a crash in one of the lanes, you get no place to deal with traffic, get emergency vehicles. So that plan quickly became obsolete. It was built on Market Basket having a car dealership in that lot that would have had, I think it was 40 trips per hour or something, or per day, whatever.
Per day.
And Market Basket was estimated 800. So that plan, no longer, you wouldn't want to put it into effect, right? Right now, TDI is writing a RFP to get that updated. So I guess my point is, the plans that seem like they have merit, if we have money, they get executed. There's been plans that have been done that there hasn't been the money to execute, and probably 20 years later, you don't want to execute them because they're out of date.
Get it? No, I appreciate that. I'm just asking to see what plans that have been published online have actually been come to fruition. It's just a data. I'm just asking for some data.
When they did this before, when this was done, there was, I don't think it was, he has a great point, I think, that I think they said, well, this stays wall space and this stays this, but I don't think the public knew that. It was a plan that stayed in here without information on it. And I think some was used at the landfill, which was a good thing, when they did the open space, but there was others that just stayed status quo the way it was. So, but as far as a published plan and what had been done, there wasn't. So he's right.
So what are you asking us to vote on?
So I guess select board first, do you want to allow the select board, draft a warrant, the town meeting would authorize the select board to be able to spend up to $57,000 from the open space fund on a consultant? So they'd kind of be the gatekeeper on how we
We add
first.
the use of that fund, it'll always be available to that. What is the use of that fund now? What?
Right now, the primary use would be to buy a piece of land to preserve it as open space.
That's all it's for.
Or you could also use it for these consultants to help figure out your natural areas plan.
Okay.
So how much was in there again?
$57,000.
And you said you didn't wanna deplete it because it
Well,
made me.
no, I didn't want you to think this is gonna go away just by spending the 57,000, because we may have more money coming in.
Take the figure out, so take that money's out of that. Don't we have to, just say, fund that through that account. 20,000, 40,000, 60,000.
I think we have to give a number,
You remember?
because
You're
it has to be
authorized-
approved by the government, it has to be approved by the governing body, so you need a
Well, we'd
number.
be doing that. You have
No,
to.
the town meeting's the governing body, so we need to have a
You
number.
want that
for town
bigger
meeting.
town, you want the big guns.
So the big governing body has to approve expenditures from that, so we
I
would
understand.
allow them to approve up to 57,000 on the selection discretion.
If that's
I'm
the
okay
case,
with
it'd be, then yes, I'd be the one.
Okay, so select board likes that, or
Yes.
raise your hand,
Raise your
yes, that's unanimous, finance committee,
Yes.
so 5-1, so, okay.
Yep.
All right, I think that's all my items, unless I missed something or anyone else has any items they wanted. Anything anyone wants different in the regular budget, so to speak.
I wanna ask a question just to gauge where we're at, considering we did spend a lot of time talking about this earlier. How do we feel if we wanted to say that we wanted to add another $250,000 to the paving budget to get that done? I know that most people don't wanna spend money, but I'm trying to be open-minded in how we do best for our town and what we're doing, and I feel like if we can seal a project off in 1 year, next year we don't have to budget for it at all, and it might be better, and maybe it's not, I just want to engage it.
Hear from the board to find out, do they have the time and the budget to do it? There you go.
And what are you, Tedford paving, or what's the paving?
That wouldn't be enough to finish Tedford.
Okay, but what?
All paving down
Does this,
streets.
does this include filling in potholes and stuff like that?
That's already in there.
That's what I see.
He wasn't getting away from.
Pothole patching's under appropriations budget. We're talking about a capital, I believe, right now.
It's a different budget.
Yes.
That's true.
We posed 750 last year, 750,000 last year, and cut 250. If we cut another 250 this year, we're cutting out just shy of a year's worth of paving, 2 years' time. So we're taking steps backwards on maintaining our roads. You can drive through our town today and drive through any of our neighboring towns today and see a world of difference in our road conditions. So as far as the need, I will stand here and say, yes, we need to keep that at $250,000 greater than what's currently being budgeted. But I also understand you've got a tough decision to make on where you're at. But we need all $250,000 back in our paving budget if we're gonna stay on target to keep our roads on our current condition.
When we go backwards, you're gonna have trouble getting
No,
out of that curve.
Costs go up and the cost next year will go up, so
The
road
reason,
goes backwards.
and that was kind of the reason I'm going for this, or suggesting it for us to talk about, because if we spent this, if we added this back in this year to try to keep us up to date, in the long term, there's a potential that it could save us money by staying up to date, because once we get too far behind, we're not looking at whether or not we can put 500,000 or ask for 750 and then cut 250. Where the ask is gonna be over $1 million to get the roads back to where we are. This is a long-term thought. This is, yes, it's a hard for this year, but in looking long-term, there's a potential that it could keep us good with our roads, keeping us up to date, but also saving that future money when inflation goes up, costs go up. We get further behind on our roads and we need to play catch up, so we have to bump up our budget exponentially in the future. I know we are very diligent as a group to try to do this, but I really do feel like people work really diligently to do the best work they can, and we should also feel that we can support that. And I wasn't in favor it or against it, but I would like to bring it up in a conversation, because I think it's worthy of a conversation, and if it would pass, it would be great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Okay.
Like I said, I've been on this committee, and the road budget is a big item, and it's very easy to use that to lower your taxes. I mean, it was down to what, 200,000 a year, something like that at one point, Dennis? It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was down less than $250,000 back about 15 years ago.
Right, and it has taken us so long to get back to something even close to where we should be. I am personally strongly in favor of adding that 250 back. Because like you said, if we don't do it, if we don't start making the effort to get all of this stuff up to where we should be, it's gonna cost us a hell of a lot more in the long run. So there you go.
I agree, the prior board worked very hard in the finance committee for years to do a budget where so much money every year went into paving.
Yeah.
And if we start cutting that this year, then we might have to cut it again next year. I am not in favor of cutting it. I think we need it. And I will reiterate what Dennis said. I think if you go in any other town just across the bridge and look at their roads, our roads are kept well, and the potholes are to a minimum because you can't help it, but I really am proud of our roads. And it goes back to, what do the taxpayers in the town of Topsham use the most? They use the roads, whether it's to go to the grocery store, ambulance, fire, police, whatever. That's the biggest part that taxpayers use in Topsham.
So are you suggesting we have a vote on?
We're back to budget. No,
So, select board, would you like to increase paving by 250,000?
Yes.
I would, yes.
So it's unanimous. Okay, finance committee, would you like to increase paving by 250,000?
Yes,
Unanimous, okay, thank you.
sorry, Dennis.
When was the last time we put something in the budget beyond your cuts?
This is only my second year.
When was the last time?
It's been done in the past, but
I
very,
don't
very,
think
very.
we-
It's rare, but
I don't think it's needed, we didn't want.
I commend all of you guys for saying yes to that, 'cause I think our public works department will appreciate that. I think the people in the town will appreciate that.
Our emergency services, less
Everybody,
wear and tear, and
Um,
safer for them.
thanks for entertaining that part of the
School
conversation.
buses, we get everything that's.
And the road that was probably the lowest on the list that was gonna get put off was Village Drive, which is part of the Highland Green tip. So we'll be able to take all that 250,000 out of that tip, so we'll be able, you can use sheltered money to pay that road for.
So, good call, Gene.
So Les, is any other things you wanted a new ladder truck, if they're in a good mood, is that?
It's still about 10 years.
Is that a matchbox size?
Pay the building off, let's get a new one.
No.
Back to you, then.
All right, this meeting is ended.
Oh, do we have to vote on the rest of the budget?
I think what we'll do now is, I'm gonna put the warrant together like it is. After you have your public hearing in April, you'll take your formal vote on every article.
Okay, so we don't have to vote on it.
No, not
Just
tonight.
on the changes tonight, okay? Okay.
I think we should give a big thanks to the town, the departments and all of the folks who work for the town. We have such a town to be proud of, community.
For the meeting.
Please try.
On behalf
Mostly
of,
you, Ed.
on behalf of staff, thank all of you for the hard work you put into this. It's obviously you care about the town and the best interest of everyone, and we appreciate all of them.
All right, we're going to adjourn then.
Yes. Some